from Iran, where protests have entered their second week as unrest sparked by economic hardship escalates into open political dissent. Demonstrations began on December 28 when shopkeepers in Tehran's Grand Bazaar went on strike over soaring prices and the collapse of the rial. Since then, protests have spread to more than 100 cities nationwide. Videos from Tehran, Shiraz, Mashhad and other cities show clashes between protesters and security forces with tear gas and live fire reported. Demonstrators have chanted slogans against Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and in some cases voiced support for Iran's former monarchy. Rights groups say at least 36 people have been killed and more than 2,000 arrested. The authorities have not confirmed figures. Iran's judiciary chief warned of swift punishment for rioters, accusing foreign enemies of stoking unrest. The protests come amid inflation near 40%, harsh sanctions, and public anger over corruption and repression, marking the most widespread unrest since the 2022 Mahsa Amini protests. All right, we have in this discussion Khatibi Moha Khatibi, who's a Middle East affairs expert, and he joins us from Tehran. Thank you very much, Mohammad Khatibi, for joining me in this discussion. I just want to ask you a very basic, simple question. Where does Khamenei stand in all of this, and what's next for him? Mohammed, if you could hear me, my question to you is rather simple. Where does Khamenei stand in all of this, and what's next as far as his course of action is concerned?
So, Ayatollah Khamenei put a big difference between rioters and peaceful protesters, and he called on the government to ease the pressure on the general public and also asked people to be patient because we are dealing with a great amount of pressure from US sanctions. And he talked about reform in which helps people, and he asked government to be more active in fighting corruption and things like that. So the government has started to distribute subsidies, goods that have sharply increased prices. They are experiencing sharp increase in their prices. The government has allocated subsidies to people to ease some pressure, and they are actively trying to control the depreciation of the national currency. And there is a change in the central bank of Iran, and its head has been changed, and a new central bank leader have been appointed, and the government is trying to control the situation.
But how is the government going to address the problem of the shortages that are now fueling with the 2 weeks of protests, shortages of good supplies and distribution?
So the government is saying that there are goods are coming to the country and there are imports. The problem is that because of the change of the prices, because the government is doing a reform about the subsidies, and instead of giving the subsidies to the companies which import goods, the government has started to give the subsidies to people, ordinary people, and this has stopped those companies from delivering goods. But it has, the government, I mean, has promised that in short term, the situation will be under control. So these days, for example, 2 or 3 days, there was a shortage of cooking oil, but it has now been controlled, and there are people can now buy cooking oil. But it was a shortage, but it was because of the prices, and the companies halted delivery of cooking oil because of the change in the prices. Right now, the government is providing subsidies for people to buy cooking oil, and the situation seems to be under control on that regard.
All right, let's talk also about the enemy that the Iran's judiciary has spoken about. The protesters that it said is, helping the enemy of the state. Who's really being referred to?
So there are many opposition groups outside of the country, and they have been calling for protests and violent protests. I mean, for example, the separatist groups in Western Iran and in southeastern Iran have called on people to protest, and they have started to carry out operations against the security forces. Also, another big opposition group, which is related to former Shah of Iran, has also called on people to protest. I think the violent protesters who have tried to seize police stations and have tried to capture military facilities are the term is used for them, not the ordinary people who are angry with the prices, and they want to be the economic hardship to be eased.
All right, thanks for providing that information with us, Khatibi, but do continue to stay on with us, please. Because let's also tell you that Iran is now saying it remains open to negotiations with the United States if talks are based on mutual respect and shared interests, while stressing it is prepared for military confrontation if necessary. The position was outlined by Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi during a visit to Beirut. Araghchi said Iran does not seek war but is ready to defend itself. Let's hear that statement.
ما خواهان جنگ نیستیم.
نحن لن نرغب بالحرب
ولی برای جنگ آمادگی داریم.
إلا أننا جاهزون لها.
برای مذاکره هم آمادگی داریم. ولی مذاکره‌ای که بر اساس منافع متقابل باشه، بر اساس احترام متقابل باشه. هر موقع آمریکایی‌ها پذیرفتند که مذاکره با دیکته کردن تفاوت داره، یک مذاکره معنادار میتونه شروع بشه.
His trip to Lebanon focused on regional security concerns, particularly Israel's actions, and on strengthening ties between Tehran and Beirut. Tensions have risen in the recent days as Israel intensified airstrikes in southern and eastern Lebanon, saying it targeted positions linked to Iran-backed Hezbollah and Palestinian group Hamas. The escalation has fueled fears of a broader regional conflict. Okay, I request Mohammad Khatibi to join me back in the discussion here. He's a Middle East affairs expert and joins us from Tehran. Thank you very much, Mohammad, for staying on with us. Well, here it's Trump that will have to strike a very delicate balance. It, of course, remains, the US, of course, remains a long ally of Israel. Now, with the talks with the Iranian leaders, how is Trump going to arrive at a dialogue? Because earlier the nuclear talks did not yield any benefit or any progress or any result for that matter.
So these comments from the Iranian foreign minister come as Trump administrations have repeatedly threatened to attack Iran. So Trump 2 or 3 days ago tweeted into its own platform through social about rescuing the protesters inside Iran, and it signaled an attack on Iranian sovereign territory, and the officials inside Iran reacted very harshly to that and said that Iran is ready to strike back. Another point here is that the posture has changed because Iranian officials are saying that they will not wait until to be attacked, and they may launch preemptive strikes whenever they see a threat. And I think that Araghchi's visit to Lebanon is in this line. So it is a signal that if Israel or United States attack Iranian allies, for example, Israel attacking Lebanon, their response will come from Tehran. So Araghchi is trying to make a balance here and trying to say that we are still open to talks. However, the possibility of war is not low. So the point here is that
Yeah, please go on.
The possibility of war is not low because the threats are real, and they are calling on Iranian protesters to pressure the government, and Israel has been providing help to Iranian separatist groups, and also Mossad and its affiliated operatives are inside Iran, and they are carrying out operations. So Israel is now openly advocating for terrorist groups inside Iran to operate, and they say they are helping separatist groups as well as violent protesters, and they are now going to help them out if the government cracks down on the violent terrorists. So the situation is really tense, and Iran is signaling readiness for both war and negotiations.
All right, sure. Thanks then very much, Mohammed, for joining me in this discussion and sharing that input with us. And moving ahead, viewers.